We start this off on a very interesting note. This guy, Will, is driving his wife, Kira, to the home of his ex-wife Eden and her current husband David for a dinner Eden invited them for. Crazy, right? On their way, they hit a coyote and Will, takes care of it before getting back in the car and continuing the journey. They arrive at the house in the evening and boy is it a big house. Nobody wants their ex doing this good after leaving them, but well, it's not like she bought the house after him. He used to live here with her when they were married. Anyway, there are other people there, so they say their highs and hellos before settling down. Eden comes down last, and why does it feel like there's still chemistry between these two? She notices a drop of blood on his face and cleans it for him. After having their moment, they now bring their new partners into the frame and do the introductions. David is a little too touchy-feely, but okay, let's get to dinner already. While David is making a toast, Will locks eyes with a mysterious-looking woman who quickly goes back into the room. I believe that lady has no bottoms on. Shortly after, she comes back out in a dress and Eden introduces her as Sadie. They met in Mexico and Sadie is now staying with them. Sadie then turns to Will and tells him that she has heard so much about him. Things are getting a little awkward now. So Kira just tells the group that they hit a coyote on their way here and they had to put it to sleep. What a way to break the ice. Will still doesn't look like he wants to be here. So, he asks Eden if he can look around a little. Remember, he used to live here with Eden. As he goes to the kitchen to get water to drink, he's getting flashbacks of some violent things that happened in this kitchen. He's lost in his thoughts, so he's really startled when Eden comes from behind and calls his name. They get talking, and these two surely still have a thing for each other. They haven't seen each other for 2 years, and here they are, shamelessly flirting with each other. Will tells her she looks different, and she says she is different. She says she's free, all her pain is gone, and she wants that for Will too. Then one of the guys, Ben, walks in and breaks the party. The three now get talking, and Eden is telling the guys that negative emotions, grief, anger, depression, all that are just chemical reactions and so are completely changeable. Her message is that pain is optional. Ben then says exactly what's on my mind. He tells her that that sounds crazy and you won't believe it. He gets a slap for it. Now, the pain that Ben felt from that slap was surely not optional. Definitely not. Eden tells him until he stops making jokes out of everything, he'll never learn a thing. That's why nobody cares what he thinks. Will was shocked to see that. I mean, he was married to the woman, but even he was shocked. He asks Ben if that's how she's been acting all night, and he says yes. She and David have been weird all evening. Ben thinks Eden has lost her mind, but he now turns to Will and asks him how he is. He says he doesn't know, and I can relate so much. The boys then do some catching up, share some jokes, and after that, they rejoin the guys in the living room. Eden comes and offers Ben a drink, but she doesn't apologize. She just tells him she has let it go already, and so should he. Ben takes the drink though, and it seems like all is well with the world now. Will, by the way, is cornered by Claire, and they start catching up. While they sit on the stairs and talk, Pruitt comes in. Pruitt is new to the group. Only David, Eden, and Sadie know him. They also met in Mexico. Gina is still expecting her boyfriend Choi, so she tries to call him, but she has no service. David tells her where she can find service. As she leaves, Will observes David go to lock the door and put the key in his pocket, and he asks David why he didn't leave the key at the door, and he says there was a home invasion not long ago. Still not totally convinced, Will asks him, what if there's a fire? And David just goes to put the key back in the lock to avoid any further argument. Eden now asks Will to please go get some more firewood. He goes to get it, and Kira wants to join him, but Eden stops her and asks her if Will has been this agitated lately. Kira says sometimes. They keep talking about Will. Meanwhile, Will is at the backyard for the firewood, and through the window, he can see Eden put something into a drawer in her room. Immediately, he gets back into the house. He goes straight to that drawer to see what she put in there. It's a bottle of pills. He takes some, puts them in his pocket, and leaves the room. Outside, he meets David. There's an awkward moment of silence between them, but nothing more than that. We now see Will having another flashback in one of the rooms. This time it's him and Eden, enjoying a nice time in the bathtub when their son walks in. It's a beautiful memory, but he's snapped out of it by a shriek from the living room. He goes to the living room to check out what's happening, and it's Gina who says Sadie, Eden, and David are in a cult. David explains it's not exactly a cult. It's a group for people who have lost someone. They come together and help each other. He claims it's more a science than a weird religious cult, and this is what they went to do in Mexico. The guys ask more questions, and then David goes on to show them a video talking about the cult called The Invitation, explaining how it works and what they do. It's led by this guy they call Dr. Joseph, and you won't believe how this video ends. That woman dies. Oh yes. The guys are asking what the hell this is and why anyone would want to watch it, and Eden says Dr. Joseph just wanted to show everybody that there's nothing to be afraid of. David now stands up and gives his testimony of how Dr. Joseph saved his life. He wants to talk about Eden and Will's loss next, but Will stops him. However, Eden picks up from there and says finding this saved her life. She's talking with a smile on her face and making it look too easy, and Will can't stand that. So, he gets up to confront her and starts raising his voice, but Tommy quickly intervenes and takes Will to the kitchen to cool off. While they're there, someone arrives. David and Pruitt go to the door. Some people head to different rooms, while Gina goes to meet Will, who's distracted by what's happening at the door. She gets his attention back after David closes the door and says that it was only a bunch of people looking for a party. Anyway, Gina offers him comfort. She tells him that she and her boyfriend were supposed to be here together for him because she knew this was going to be heavy for him. They hug, and she goes to get a refill of her drink. Will now goes off to sit at a table alone where he's examining Eden's pills. He's joined shortly by Miguel, who tells him that the pill is phenobarbital. While they're talking, Tommy comes in and asks them to join them outside. So Will immediately puts the pills back in his pocket and tells Miguel to keep this between them. Well, Miguel, how many drinks will it take you to start singing? The answer is none, apparently, because before he even takes a sip of the wine David has just handed him, he tells the guys that Will thinks they're on pills. So Will does what I'd have done in that situation. He completely denies ever saying that. When David and Pruitt leave, Will just asks Miguel why, and he just pretends like he doesn't speak English. His boyfriend, by the way, thinks it's not a big deal, and Will is just overreacting. Oh? Okay. David now goes upstairs and apologizes to the group for the video he played earlier. He says he's not trying to force his ideas on them. He now asks that they play a game they used to play in Mexico. This game feels more like homework than a game, to be honest. He says the game is I Want, and the point is to be honest and admit your desires. He says anything is possible once you strip away social constraints, embarrassments, negative emotions, and things that hold us down. Now, tell me how the hell I'm supposed to be in the mood for games after this long lecture. Unsurprisingly, it's one of them who begins. Sadie. She gets up and says, I want to tell you, insert the names of every single person sitting here. I want to tell you all that I love you. And she ends that with a pretty lengthy lip-on-lip with Gina, and that gets Gina in the mood for the game immediately. So she tells David that she wants some of that coke he used to do, and David immediately goes to get some for her. As he goes to get it, Gina says she was only kidding, but David tells her that he knows she wasn't kidding and hands it to her. He says that that's the point of the game, so she accepts the coke. Okay, I think I was wrong about this game. It seems pretty lit, at least until Pruitt decides to go next and bore us. He says he wants to tell us about his wife, and then he starts boring us. She was a painter, and he says he was in love with her before he even met her. Then when he met her, he found that she was the most beautiful and most gorgeous woman ever. Miguel notices his use of the past tense and asks if she passed away, and I should actually stop jumping into conclusions because this story I thought was boring just took a gargantuan twist. You won't believe it. Pruitt admits to clapping his wife 7 years ago and even went to prison for it. Oh shit. He says prison didn't change him, but guess what did? The invitation. Now, he doesn't grieve and he doesn't feel guilty anymore. He tells them he's free to forgive himself, and so are they. Claire is reacting to all of that, and she says that that doesn't feel very honest. She says it feels like he's trying to sell them something. While she's still confused, Eden cuts in and confuses everybody even further. She says she wants to kiss Ben. She has always wanted to. Ben says, why the hell not? And they get to it. Ben thinks it's just a quick touch of the lips and that's it. But apparently, Eden wants something longer and much more passionate. Gina, Tommy, Miguel, Sadie, and you won't believe this, David, who, might I remind you, is Eden's husband, are all cheering. But Claire is so uncomfortable with all of this, so she says she has to go. David is trying to convince her to stay, but Will stands up and tells him to let her go. I won't be surprised if these two end up throwing punches tonight. Anyway, Claire goes out and Pruitt follows her because he's parked behind her. Will watches from the window until Claire leaves, but once she's out of eyesight, Pruitt stops her and approaches her, so Will can't see what's going on there now. Just then, David approaches Will and confronts him about how suspicious he has been all night. The door thing, him watching Pruitt, all of that. Will apologizes, but when David starts to talk about understanding his pain and all that, he just tells him to stop. Pruitt then comes in and says he was only apologizing to Claire for scaring her with his story. Pruitt leaves, David leaves, and Will is left alone with his thoughts once again. Anyway, the group now finally goes upstairs for dinner, and they're just eating and sharing jokes. But of course, Will is just eating his food in silence. He sinks into his memories again, and he's thinking back to his son's 5th birthday when all was well with the world. Suddenly, everything begins to intensify. He repeatedly calls out to Kira, who's sitting just across, but she doesn't hear him. It seems nobody can hear him, even when he screams. Then suddenly, we cut to him standing alone outside and watching as Kira clears the table. He now re-enters the house, and through an ajar door, he sees Sadie making weird faces in front of a mirror. She catches him peeping, and he immediately leaves and goes back outside. Sadie joins him outside shortly, and the first thing she does is to infer that things aren't good with Kira. He asks her why she says that, and she says it just seems like that to her, like Kira is really distant. Will is trying to free himself from this conversation, so he moves to sit on a bench and pretends like he wants to make a call. But Sadie reminds him that there's no service here and goes to sit beside him, and you won't believe what she tells him now. She literally tells him that he can, take her right there. Will is so confused, and she said that's what it was like in Mexico. Everyone was just going for it. Will tells her she needs to go back inside, and Sadie asks if he doesn't like her. He says he doesn't even know her. She says she can make him like her so much without even touching him. She even tells him that he can hurt her if he wants, but he says he doesn't want to. She says she believes him, and finally lets him be and goes inside. We now cut to Tommy approaching Will. Will says there's something off about tonight, but Tommy insists everything is okay. He encourages Will and reassures him that it's normal to feel odd about visiting the house he once lived in again. He tells him that he's brave for coming here, gives him a hug, and then goes inside. Still outside, Will finally gets some service, and a voicemail pops in. It's Choi. He essentially tells Will that he was the earliest to the house. As a matter of fact, he sent this particular voicemail from in front of the house. And of course, that does absolutely no good to an already suspicious and paranoid Will who hasn't seen Choi all night. He now returns to the dining table. The lights go off and Eden and David come in with a cake for Miguel's birthday, which is in a week. The lights come back on and everybody's cheering, but Will just blurts out, "Where's Choi?" He then tells them that he got a message from Choi saying he was here. Everybody is confused, including Eden and David. Of course, Gina is now really bothered, but Eden assures her that they haven't seen Choi tonight. When Pruitt tries to contribute to the conversation, Will just lashes out at him and says that he doesn't know why he and Sadie are here. He now turns to Eden and David and says they haven't seen them for 2 years, and then suddenly, they get invited to a dinner. He says it's not normal, both the invitation to the dinner and the invitation cult. Yelling, he says, the invitation is about denial, and it's a brainwash. Now, he reveals the thing that he and Eden lost, that he has been trying not to talk about all night. His son, Ty. They lost their son, and now Eden is acting like it meant nothing when they lost him. He now returns to the original topic. He asks again where Choi is, and he gets the same answer. Kira now asks that they leave immediately. As she gets up from her seat, they hear the bell. Who do you think it is? Just take a wild guess. Of course it's Choi. Now, Will looks like a damn fool. He's crying and apologizing, but they all say it's cool. They chalk it up to the loss of his son, and then he leaves to go to the bathroom. In the bathroom, he's having flashbacks of when he was helping Ty wash his hands. When he's done in the bathroom, he goes outside to sit alone, and Kira comes to join him, asking that they leave. He just starts unloading to her and blaming himself for the demise of his son. She encourages him to forgive himself and start to move on, but he says he doesn't think she can help him or something like that, so she leaves. Shortly after, Will comes back inside and asks to see Ty's room. He goes into the room and the memories are now more vivid than ever. We even see Ty's face for the first time here. While he's in the room, Will sees David go out to the garden, light a red lantern, and go back into the house. Suspicious and paranoid, Will is back. He now goes to the desk and finds a laptop. When he opens it, he sees a message from Dr. Joseph. The video is a pretty eerie one. The guy is basically sending a message to whoever is watching to come and join the cult. While the video is rounding off, Pruitt knocks on the door and tells Will that everybody is waiting for him. So Will closes the laptop and goes back upstairs with Pruitt. Will grabs a seat at the table as David and Eden are serving everybody a glass of wine each. After they do, David makes a toast to a better world to peace. And then, from what I can see, only Gina takes a sip before a paranoid Will gets up and starts slapping down the glasses from everyone's hands while yelling to Kira that they're leaving right now. Immediately he does that, Pruitt attacks him, shortly followed by Sadie, who's also shouting at Will that he ruined everything. In trying to defend himself from her attack, Will shoves Sadie aside, and she hits her head and falls to the ground unconscious. Now, while they're trying to attend to Sadie, they find out that Gina is also unconscious on the table. Remember, she was the only one who drank the wine. Everybody is frantic now. Ben is trying to call 911, Kira is trying to find a pulse, and Miguel is performing CPR on Gina. Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, you won't believe what happens next. While Miguel is trying his best to resuscitate my girl Gina, David, from behind, blows Miguel's head right off. I kid you not. Now we're in slow-mo, and things are about to get even crazier. Sadie wakes up, and then David hands over the gun to Pruitt, who acts like he's here to defuse the whole situation. But once he gets a feel of that Glock, the first thing he does is to shoot Choi. Still alive, Choi tries to crawl away, but Pruitt follows him and completes the job. The rest of the guys now try to use that opportunity to run away, but Tommy, who has just lost his boyfriend, wants revenge. So he charges at David, but Eden doesn't let him get to her husband. She takes a knife and slashes him Sparta style. So we have Ben, Kira, and Will left, right? They try to march out through the front door, but they find that it's locked. Will tries to lead them through another exit, but Sadie comes and attacks Will, biting and hitting him. He manages to do away with her and lock himself up in a room with Kira. But while they're in the room trying to find a way out, they see David and Pruitt clap Ben tag team style. So we're down to just Will and Kira. Will turns to his wife and shares some of his will to live with her. Then they go to open the door and make their way out of the room, slowly and quietly. They see David trying to encourage Eden to help him finish what they started, but she doesn't seem like she's down for any more Spartan displays. What's interesting is that these people think they're doing all of this for the right reasons. David is telling Eden that this is the only way they can leave all of this pain behind and stop hurting. He then gets up and Eden reluctantly and weakly follows him. After they leave, Will and Kira continue their exit from the house, and on their way, they find Sadie sitting on a chair half alive. Will takes the rod on her lap and heads upstairs trying to go out through an exit. He knows from when he used to live here, but he finds that the door that used to be there is no longer there. They now hear Pruitt coming upstairs, so they hide and then sneak attack him, but Pruitt handles both of them pretty well. He's now strangling Will and telling him to let go, but Kira comes from behind and hits him repeatedly with a bottle until he, lights out. Will then stands up, grabs Kira by the hand, and leads her outside to the dining area where they see Eden, who then turns around and shoots Will before then clapping herself. Will is really living up to his name. He has so much will to live. And guess who also does? Tommy. After that slashing, he is still alive. Gotta love it. Elsewhere, Kira has now picked up Eden's Glock as they wait for David, who's now climbing up the stairs to meet them now, but he doesn't get upstairs. Tommy attacks him and pulls him downstairs. They fight for a bit, but Tommy is able to stab David in the chest, and I think he's gone for good now. Again, I should stop jumping into conclusions cause Eden is still alive, and she now calls out to Will. He goes to meet her, and she tells him she misses Ty so much. She apologizes and asks to be taken outside, so Will, with the help of Kira, carries her outside where she draws her last breath. The three survivors now hug, and shortly after, Will and Kira notice the red light from the lantern spread all across the city, accompanied with sounds of gunshots, choppers, and sirens. As it appears, thousands of people in the city got the lethal invitation tonight.